Warning, this video contains strong language that may be offensive to some viewers. Please be advised. Otherwise, please enjoy. The story begins outside a dungeon in the city, where many reporters have gathered around to see Junwoo Kim. Junwoo is the first hunter to reach SSS rank in the world, after becoming the top hunter in Korea 1 year ago. A reporter asks him if it's true that he received an offer from the International Hunter Association. Another reporter asks him how he feels about the dungeon being an ultra-high risk level. Could you give a word of advice to young aspiring hunters? Another reporter asks. This is the first operation that Junwoo and his team had in a while. Even though Junwoo hasn't mentioned anything about the operation, reporters have already swarmed around outside the dungeon. Junwoo is thinking, today must have been a rare opportunity for them. He apologizes and tells them that he would like to focus on their conquest. Based on the expressions on their faces, he gathers that they had expected he would say something like that. He thinks they will probably get credit just by capturing his voice on air. He decides to give them something special today. Junwoo tells the reporters, one thing is for sure, we've always placed our priority on the safety of the citizens, and we're not planning to change that anytime soon. He then turns around and begins walking towards the dungeon entrance. He feels relieved that he at least made a statement that would save his image, until a young man calls out to him and asks him if he has anything to say about the cleaning team assault incident. Junwoo asks the man about what he just asked. The young man tells him, the assault of the dungeon cleaning team staff. He then mentions about the man he hurled into the wall. Junwoo becomes too stunned to respond. The young man tells him that he gets that he wants to pretend like it never happened, and he tells him that he personally knows the man he beaten up. He asks him how he didn't make the headlines after beating up an old man. Reporters in the crowd begin to whisper amongst themselves, as they realize they have an exclusive, the story about hunter Junwoo Kim, assaulting a civilian. Junwoo walks away and says that it is a disturbing rumor. The young man wishes him good luck on his conquest today, and he shouts, the world's greatest hunter, Junwoo Kim. The hunters feel uneasy as they enter the dungeon, knowing that their leader is not in a good mood. The Korea Association of Supernatural Ability Management, or simply, the Association, is an organization that was established to protect the country and its citizens from dungeons and deadly monsters. The association gathered individuals with supernatural abilities and established 4 kinds of teams. The operations teams, or the hunters, are assigned to conquests. Operation Team 1 is considered to be the elite force and is comprised of the best hunters, and the leader of that team is now facing a scandal. News about the world's greatest hunter and the assault incident quickly spread across media outlets. Junwoo is angry and wants to know who that young man was. His assistant asks him what is wrong, because the dungeon conquest was successful. He tells her that he told her to make sure the incident didn't get leaked. She tells him that she did. Junwoo asks her how the word then got out, and he says it's all over the internet. He asks where the young man is from. Is he from the TMZ? US Weekly? His assistant tells him the man isn't a reporter, and that he is a nobody. Junwoo tells her that is nonsense, how else would he know? His assistant informs him that the young man claims to be the son of the cleaning team leader, Guntae Park. Junwoo shouts in anger, cursing the situation. His assistant tells him that this isn't the only problem and that testimonies about his past are pouring in, and that it will only get worse. She advises him to take some time off and informs him that his schedule is empty. As she is just about to suggest a vacation, Junwoo interrupts her. He tells her that he eliminates whatever comes in his way. She tells him that she is well aware, and Junwoo tells her to take care of it, because if things spiral out of control, that will be the end of his career. She tells him that she will work on it. Junwoo tells her that he feels like he is talking to a machine. He then sighs and tells her to forget it. He asks her what the chairman say about the situation. She tells him the chairman didn't say much and that he is busy with the offer from the International Association. She then tells him again to lay low until everything dies down. Junwoo disregards her suggestion and tells her not to be ridiculous, continuing their conversation about the chairman. He says that it just means the chairman doesn't want to talk at all, and who knows? He might even get fired. He says he was the one who brought the chairman this far. His assistant just replies, "I see." Juno asks her if she is like an IC robot or something. She tells him not to worry because his rank will remain unchanged despite his current public image. In other words, his offer won't be revoked. Earlier that day, Juno was filled with rage when he read the news article after the dungeon conquest. His team managed to calm him down and stopped him from going after the reporter, who actually turned out to be just the son. Prior to the incident, crowds of people stood before Juno, praising him. He is their savior, the world's best ever, Korea's youngest hunter, Korea's first S rank, world's first SSS rank. He is not only the best in Korea, but the #1 in the world. He even received an offer from the International Hunter Association. Juno is thinking about all these achievements from over the years, and how they all just gone down the drain in a blink of an eye. He believes it is only natural for him to be pissed off. He is thinking about how that young man dares to stand in his way when his assistant asks him a question. She asks him why he assaulted the cleaning team leader anyway. He tells her that he told her that he went and grabbed his collar first. She then asks him what made the man do that. She tells him that even though he never really got along with the cleaning team, he never directly interacted with them until now. Juno tells her that it is whatever, he doesn't even remember the reason. He says, when he gets back, he will take care of Guntae, Park. He tells her to bring the man over to him because he wants to settle with him before things get out of hand. Juno clicks his tongue, thinking that people just won't leave him in peace. Suddenly, a bright light catches Juno's attention. They see a truck is heading directly towards them. Just as the truck is about to crash into them, Juno activates his time control skill to accelerate their car's movement, and they were able to safely maneuver around the truck just in time. Juno is thinking that if he was 1 second late, they would have been drowning in their own blood, and that the truck driver didn't even hesitate once. He is angry and wonders if that driver is wasted. His assistant replies that she doesn't know. Juno gets out of the car and shouts, asking what kind of jerk dares to ruin his day. As he walks towards the truck, the road begins to crack and then suddenly several chains come out of the ground and latch onto him. Juno recognizes the restraining devices and that this is a trap for the extraordinaries. He can't move at all. A truck is driving towards him at a high speed, and Juno is struggling to break free. The truck crashes right into him, however, another truck appears in front and crashes into him. The collision was so strong, it created a large explosion. Moments later, Juno appears standing in the fire. He thinks about how he is really having a crappy day. A large group of armed soldiers are positioned around Juno and they are ordered to open fire. Juno realizes that this is definitely an ambush that was thoroughly planned. He is thinking about how a regular hunter would have been killed instantly, and about how he survived over 1,000 battles inside dungeons, each being a life or death situation. He thinks this won't kill him. That is what he thought, until he saw the Titan, the superpower suppressor. He realizes he is screwed. The gunman spares no time and shoots. The system has detected critical damage on Juno's several vital organs, and it begins to calculate chances of his revival. His death has been confirmed. They throw Juno's body off the bridge. As his body sinks in the water, the system notifies that as a result of his death, he has successfully unlocked a hidden skill. The name of the hidden skill is Karma. With this achievement, he has been sent back 10 years in the past, and his post-revival career will be determined by his karma from his former life. The system begins assigning Juno his new career. Meanwhile, a person is stuffing a goblin carcass in a bag. The system notifies that a career has been assigned. A group of people are cleaning a dungeon. Someone yells at Juno to hurry and collect the corpses. The system notifies that Juno has been assigned to the dungeon cleaning team. What the hell? Is that bastard drunk? Were they from the military? Or from the association? Or special agents? Who dares to go against me? This sure is a crappy day. The superpower suppressor, the Titan. This won't kill me. Or, that's what I thought. I don't want to die. Juno wakes up screaming. He jolts out of bed, thinking he had a terrible dream. He wonders how long he has been asleep. He is thinking about how his body is sore all over, until suddenly he notices the room. He doesn't know where he is. There is trash and dirty clothes all over the floor. He sees the room and thinks it's an apartment that couldn't be larger than a pigsty. He knows it is definitely not his house. He thinks of his assistant, Ms. Lee, and doesn't think it could be her house either. She would never invite him over anyway, even if the world came to an end. He gets up and walks into the bathroom, really wondering where he is. He freezes when he sees a notification about confirming his own death, and about his having unlocked a hidden skill. He questions the information about his death, and thinks that it is a load of bull. They gotta be pulling his leg. He becomes shocked when he sees himself in the mirror. He sees the reflection of himself is from 10 years ago, when he was 28 years old. He is baffled by what is going on. He calls up the system, and becomes stunned when he sees the hidden skill, Karma, is displayed. He learns that the hidden skill was unlocked by his death, and that he was sent back 10 years in the past, and that the skill cannot be arbitrarily deactivated. He is completely taken aback, and falls on the floor, realizing that the nightmare he just had was not a dream. He begins laughing with sarcasm, thinking about how he is dead. Moments later, the system notifies him that he has been assigned to a new career as a result of his new skill. Juno begins cursing. He thinks about how he had just become a hunter at around this time, and he had already reached rank A when he was 28 years old. And by then, he was ranked 22nd in the country and 525th in the world. He is frustrated with his current situation. If he had been sent back 10 years in the past, it should have been just simply that. He should still be a hunter, a promising and aspiring hunter who gains the world's attention. Instead, a cleaner, he questions. The almighty Juno Kim is a dungeon cleaner? He begins to read the Karma skill effects. In order to deactivate Karma, he must become the Secretary General of the International Superpower Association within 5 years. If the requirement is met, the skill will be automatically deactivated, and he will return to the moment in time right before his death. If unsuccessful, Hunter Juno Kim will perish. He gulps nervously, thinking that he must become the Secretary General to deactivate the skill. If he succeeds, he can go back to when he was alive. However, if he fails, he will rot away from here for the rest of his life. He thinks it is bull crap, and he can't believe this is happening to him. The International Superpower Association. It is a global organization that oversees and manages all associations worldwide. Secretary General is a position that holds more authority than the President of the United States. In other words, the Secretary General is the most powerful person in the world. Juno thinks that is way out of his league, even for the world's first SSS rank hunter. He asks himself if he really needs to make it to that position, in just 5 years? He says sorry, he can't. It's not that he doesn't want to, he thinks it is just simply impossible. He gets up from the floor and begins to browse his stats. He says whatever, karma my ass. He does not care. He is thinking, he will be brought back to life only if he becomes the Secretary General. In that case, becoming a hunter will be his best chance. With his skills, he will reach SSS rank in no time. And then, he sees that all of his hunter skills are locked. He begins cursing and damning karma, until suddenly, the system notifies him that he has acquired a new skill. He becomes ecstatic because he at least has one skill. And then, the system displays his new skill. OCD, a passive skill with the effect, get cleaning, you moron. Juno becomes furious, and goes on a rampage. After some time, Juno cools off. He lies down and begins to rehash his thoughts about his current situation. He died and ended up going back 10 years, and he woke up as a dungeon cleaner instead of an SSS ranking hunter. All his hunter skills are locked, and all his achievements vanished like they never happened. He wonders, what now? Does he really need to take the cleaning job? He refuses. He thinks about his dignity as an SSS ranker. Being a cleaner will be the death of him. He switches gears and begins to think about who killed him. He knows the group that assaulted him was well trained. He wonders if they were from a civilian guild, or if they were possibly sent by the association. Suddenly, his phone rings. He answers the phone, and the person on the call greets him and is glad to know he is awake. He tells him that it's Park, his boss. He tells him that he was just wondering if he was coming into work today. Juna thinks of Park and wonders if he has a boss named Park. His boss tells him that it's been an hour since he was supposed to be there. He asks him if he isn't feeling well and says that the last dungeon was quite tough. Junu jolts out of bed when his boss mentions dungeon. He is thinking how he was assigned to be a dungeon cleaner by his karma. His boss tells him that he admits the last dungeon was a toughie, and he promises that it won't be as challenging today. Meanwhile, one of the employees tells their boss to not bother trying because Junu is a wuss and he has already dipped. The other employee also tells their boss to cut it out because it isn't the first time people have just quit. Junu hears them talking in the background. They ask their boss how long he is going to keep them waiting, and they say Junu is useless, so they need to get moving. Junu becomes offended. He admits that he looks like crap, but for the cleaners to look down on him? He thinks this has to be some damn joke. The boss tells the employees to shut it and says that Junu must have a good reason. He turns his attention back to Junu. He tells him to take it easy today, and to just give him a heads up next time if he is going to miss work. He lets him know that he can reach him on this number and tells him to go ahead and save him as Gunte Park. Suddenly, the boss is startled by Junu's screaming. Junu asks him for his name again. The boss tells him that he understands it isn't an easy name to memorize, and he says his name again. Junu's eyes widen in shock as he hears him say, Gunte Park. The boss tells him to get some rest and to let him know if he can work next week. Junu cuts him off and tells him he is coming in now. Gunte is confused and asks him about what he just said. Junu is already at the door, getting ready to leave. He tells him that he is coming into work. Reality begins to sink in for Junu. He thinks about how much more his current situation sucks. He was shocked that he didn't have any decent and wearable clothing, and that there wasn't a Bentley waiting for him outside his place. He didn't have a choice but to consider taking a taxi. However, he couldn't even find a single penny in his wallet. The great Junu Kim is on a bus. His situation is really pissing him off. He never could have imagined himself ever being in this situation in the past. He is thinking that, since he is now living in the past, all of his relationships must have changed, which also means that he never assaulted Gunte Park. As of now, he has no beef with him. However, if it is Gunte Park who killed him, it would be a different story. Junu ponders on his death, trying to find an explanation. He knows that the accident was planned to stop him on the bridge, and that the assailants set up an anti-superpower seizure device to prevent him from using his skills. In addition, the particular gun that was used was the Titan, a superpower suppressor for torching monsters. He thinks about how it's the most powerful weapon in its class. It is a highly technologically advanced and ultra-expensive firearm. It is something that a dungeon cleaner could not handle. However, Gunte Park could have hired a professional. Junu also thinks about the son because he felt a deep resentment from him. He thinks about how he had only nudged him, but they called it an assault. If only he had just listened to him when he was being nice. Junu begins to recall his memories of the incident. Gunte asks Junu to take it back. Junu asks, "And you are?" Gunte tells him his name and says he is the cleaning team leader. Junu tells him that he never heard of his name, and he asks him what this is about. Apparently Juno had suggested a cut in the cleaning team staff. Gunte tells him that his team is already understaffed, and they are struggling to keep up. Juno asks him why he is telling him this, because he only made a suggestion, and that he doesn't have any authority over the matter. He tells him to go ask the control team instead, because it is up to them to decide. Gunte explains why he came to him. Everyone in the industry knows how much influence Juno has, and the association practically depends on him. Gunte begins to beg Juno to reconsider his suggestion with the cutbacks. Juno scratches his head, not knowing how to respond. He knew they would eventually hear that he was the one who suggested the cutbacks, but he didn't expect them to actually come to him. Juno sees the expression on his face and realizes that this is going to drag on. Gunte has the look of determination. Juno asks him if he knows that it is actually inefficient for lizards to cut off their tails. Gunte does not follow. Juno tells him that, yet they do it without hesitation when they are in danger. He asks Gunte why he thinks that is. It's because it is the only way they will survive. He tells him that, as inefficient and painful it is, that is their only chance of survival. It is the definition of a last resort. Gunte tells him that they're not. Juno asks if he is saying that they are not the tail. He tells him that he gets it, because everyone thinks they are somebody in this world. He asks Gunte if he really thinks that. He then tells him that the association is facing a major financial crisis, and that they would need to cut the salaries of top hunters. Gunte is shocked to hear that the reason was so they can maintain their own salaries. Juno explains that the priority of the association is to protect citizens from dungeons and monsters, and that it is hunters like himself who has to carry that mission. He says they can't work their asses off for nothing. He tells Gunte he is sorry, that they had no other option, and he turns around and begins to walk away. Gunte shouts at him, saying that it is nonsense. He asks him if he has any conscience. Juno tells him that cleaners do not do much anyway. Gunte asks him if he has any idea the work they do. Juno asks what more is there to cleaning, and tells him to let it go for now, because they can always recruit later anyway. Gunte tells him that they take pride in what they do. Juno continues to dismiss his pleas. He tells him that they should have done the cutbacks years ago, but they didn't. So, they should at least understand. Gunte repeats what Juno told him earlier: the priority of the association is to protect the citizens. He asks Juno if they are not citizens as well. He then gets down on his knees and begs him again to reconsider. Juno walks up to Gunte. He clicks his tongue and says that this is bothersome. He tells him that he thought he had explained enough for him to understand, and apparently he didn't. Juno looks at Gunte straight in the eye and tells him that people like him need to thank them, and that they don't fight for their lives like they do. They just get paid to clean up. He then tells him that they are a bunch of parasites. Gunte is completely appalled by Juno's remark, and he becomes angry. He quickly gets up and grabs Juno's collar, and he tells him to say it again. Juno throws Gunte hard into the wall. He tells him to watch it. There are cracks all over the wall. Gunte is on the ground and doesn't get back up. Blood is trickling down his face, as he grunts in pain. Juno tells him to stop overreacting, because it was just a nudge. He calls his assistant, and he orders her to come and take care of the parasite. Juno has finally arrived at the job site. He stands in front of the dungeon entrance and notices it is a yellow-level dungeon. He remembers the boss inside this dungeon is the Foxtrot Centipede. He was part of this dungeon conquest when he was 28 years old. He is thinking he had definitely traveled 10 years back in time. Suddenly, he hears someone calling out to him. He recognizes the voice and turns his head to look. He sees it as the man himself, Gunte Park, the dungeon cleaner in the flesh, and Gunte is happy to see Juno. He tells him that he knew he would come. Gunte calls out to Juno. He is happy that he came. Juno doesn't respond. His head is filled with thoughts about him. He glares at him, thinking, there he is, "The man who did this to me, the dungeon cleaner, Guntae Park." Guntae, brimming in good spirits, walks up to Junwoo and asks him if he is alright. A typical middle-aged man in a cheap, worn-out uniform. He is just exactly how Junwoo remembers him. He looks at Guntae and thinks he doesn't look like someone who could kill. Guntae tells him it is good to see him, and he asks if he has eaten. He then slaps Junwoo on the back and tells the other employees that he told them that he would show up, and that he knew Junwoo would be a dependable person when he first met him. One of the employees brushes him off and says that Junwoo only showed up because he got caught trying to skip work. His name is Sang-hyuk Han, a member of the cleaning team 3 staff. Another employee remarks, "Dependable my ass," and he brings up how Junwoo didn't do any work last time because he said he couldn't handle it. The employee's name is Hee-jong Lim. The female employee, Soyeon Moon, asks their boss why he insisted on Junwoo to come in, because the 4 of them are good as is. Guntae tells them to stop whining, they need to buckle down and get ready to work. He asks Sang-hyuk how much time they have. He replies, 45 minutes. Guntae is shocked that they only have 45 minutes to complete the job. Sang-hyuk tells him that he can thank the wuss for putting them an hour behind schedule. Junwoo is thinking, sheesh, give me a break. Guntae gets in front of his team and tells them it is time to get going, otherwise, they will get another earful. The 3 employees reply, yes sir, while Junwoo just stands there. Guntae hands Junwoo some items and tells him that they should fit him just fine. Junwoo is looking at the items. He is puzzled. A respirator? As the other employees are getting ready, Guntae notices Junwoo and asks him if something is the matter and if there is a problem. Junwoo tells him no, that it is not necessarily a problem. He asks, what exactly is it that dungeon cleaners do? The Korea Association of Supernatural Ability Management, also known as the Association, is comprised of 5 departments. At the top of the organization is the upper management. Directly underneath are the command and control, hunter support, and strategy and operation teams. At the bottom, and not aligned in the organizational structure, is the dungeon cleaning team. The command and control teams monitor dungeon activity and gather data. The hunter support teams manufacture and supply gear and weapons for general dungeon conquests. The strategy and operation teams are comprised of hunters, and they fight and exterminate the dungeon monsters. And then, there is the dungeon cleaning team. Cleaning Team 3 is making their way inside the dungeon. Guntae asks Hee-jong how he is doing with disinfecting. Hee-jong tells him that he's on it and that the passage is wider than he expected. They might run out of disinfectant soon. Guntae tells him that it should be fine as long as he sprays it evenly across the rooms. He then tells Sang-hyuk to double-check on the location of the boss's room. He tells Soyeon to make sure to check the gas levels. They all reply, yes sir. He tells them that they need to hurry because today's boss is a big one, so dismantling it is going to take some time. Even though Junwoo had no clue what the cleaning team was all about, he wonders why they are pretending to be so busy. Meanwhile, the cleaning crew are hard at work. Guntae shouts at Junwoo and asks where he is going because he is going to find himself in trouble heading off alone like that. Junwoo tells him that he thought they were heading to the boss's room. Guntae tells him that he needs to stick with the team because they are heading there now. Junwoo asks him what he is talking about because the boss's room is this way. Guntae is confused and Sang-hyuk wants to know what the hell is Junwoo on about. Soyeon tells Junwoo that if he isn't up for it, then he should just say so. They complain that they don't have time for this. They tell their boss that they should ignore him and just move on. Sang-hyuk walks up to Junwoo and tells him to look at the dungeon map from the control team and then tell him where the boss's room is. In the beginning, dungeons were mapped out by the hunters. Since the map was provided by the control team, it should not have errors. However, Junwoo tells him that the map is incorrect, and he tosses the map and says it is this way. He makes a comment that he had overestimated the control team, that they can't even do their job right. Sang-hyuk is shocked and asks if Junwoo is high or something. Guntae asks Junwoo what makes him so certain. Junwoo tells him that there is no point in questioning him because the conquest was carried out by, and then Junwoo pauses. Guntae wants him to finish, it was carried out by. Junwoo wants them to forget it because no one is going to believe him anyway. He knows the location of the boss's room because he was the one who led the dungeon conquest in his previous life. He tells them to never mind and to lead the way. As the group walk towards their destination, Guntae asks Junwoo if he is sick. He tells him the time they have left before the dungeon closes. He asks him if he knows about it. Junwoo is realizing that is what it was. Dungeons typically close up 2 hours after the conquest. Hunters aren't concerned with time because they leave as soon as they complete their conquest. However, it is a different matter for the cleaning teams. It is imperative for them to begin their jobs immediately. Junwoo tells Guntae that he doesn't understand. Why clean a dungeon that will perish on its own anyway? Guntae laughs and says that it is nonsense. He tells him that a subjugated dungeon doesn't simply perish. Rather, it enters a resting phase until a new monster takes over. Junwoo tells him that he is aware. Guntae asks him if a dungeon opened up again, only to be filled with monster carcasses, how would he feel? Junwoo tells him that he wouldn't think much of it. Guntae tells him he is wrong and explains, hunters could lose their way during their conquest, and the gas that the carcasses release is fatal to humans, and the more carcasses there are, the higher the risk for hunters. Junwoo responds, oh, right. Guntae tells him that their goal is to make sure the hunters can focus solely on their conquests, and he tells him to take pride in what he does. He then says that, without them, there wouldn't be any hunters either, and he begins laughing. Junwoo is thinking that is bullshit. Guntae tells Junwoo that their main job is to clean up monster carcasses and the byproducts inside the dungeon, and also make sure there aren't any hunters who may have been left behind. He says that rescuing hunters could also be one of their responsibilities, although it has never happened before. Junwoo is thinking, of course not, a cleaner rescuing a hunter? Never heard of that in my life. He begins to realize that the cleaning team haven't been bumming around after all. Sometime later, they are standing in front of an entrance. Sang-hyuk tells everyone that they have arrived. According to the map, this should be the boss's room. He opens the door and is in shock. The team is standing inside a room that is empty. Junwoo tells Sang-hyuk that he hates to say it, he told him so. Heejang hesitantly says that Junwoo was right all along. Sang-hyuk sees that they aren't in the right room but doesn't understand how it could be possible. They huddle around their boss and they ask him what they should do now. Junwoo tells them that there is nothing they can do here, so they should just call it a day, but they ignore him. Guntae asks how much time they have left. Sang-hyuk replies, 22 minutes. Guntae says that it should be enough and he asks them what they think. They all tell him that it is worth a shot and that they should get moving. Junwoo shouts at them to wait, and he asks what they mean by, that is enough time. Guntae tells him that what he means is, it is enough time to get working. They at least need to finish what they started. Junwoo is completely baffled. He tells him that he just said they only have 22 minutes left, and what if the dungeon closes up on them? Once it closes, the earliest it will reopen is 1 week, and worst case scenario, it could be a year. Guntae is not moved. He tells Junwoo that they could just chill inside then, that it is no big deal. Junwoo is thinking about how being trapped inside a dungeon for an entire year basically means death. He tells them that they have lost their minds and questions them that they would risk their lives just over some cleaning job. Guntae laughs and asks Junwoo to tell him something he doesn't already know. They begin heading out and Sang-hyuk tells Junwoo he is free to leave if he wants, and that he never expected much from him anyway. Sang-hyuk and Heejang continue to make comments about Junwoo. Never mind him, it's probably his first time in a dungeon anyway. He probably thinks of this as a petty job. Before Soyeon leaves the room, she stops and gives Junwoo a look of disappointment. Junwoo is standing alone and is thinking about how he has never once failed a conquest in the 15 years of his hunting career. He was the first to reach SSS rank worldwide and the first to win the title as number 1. There is absolutely no one who could look down on his dungeon career. But now, he is being looked down in a dungeon by mere low-life cleaners. He laughs. Out of nowhere, he tells the team that there is a small path down the room. Sang-hyuk calls him a dumbass and says he is making things up again. Junwoo cuts him off and tells him, in a scary tone, to shut his goddamn mouth and to listen to him. He tells them that the boss's room is 500 meters away from here. If they take the shortcut, they might make it there in 8 minutes, maybe in 5 minutes if they run. He then tells them that, this time he is leading, and that if they have any complaints, then they are free to leave. The crew is confused and they tell Junwoo to wait. Moments later, the team is running down a path with Junwoo in front. They eventually arrive at an entrance, and they follow Junwoo inside. They are completely astonished at what they find lying in front of them. The Foxtrot Centipede, a boss monster that stretches over 10 meters in length, about 33 feet. Sang-hyuk walks up to Junwoo and tells him that he was right, that this is the boss's room. Junwoo is looking around the room. He judges that it must have been a fierce battle, and that at least 5 or 6 lives must have been lost. He is surprised to see that they were able to hit the vital spot. Sang-hyuk clears his throat and says that there is no time to waste, they need to begin dismantling. Junwoo stretches out his arm to stop him. Sang-hyuk is confused and asks him what he thinks he is doing. He asks him if he is trying to get back at him, and suddenly, the boss monster moves. They see it is still alive, but they can't believe it, it surely should have been defeated. Junwoo is concerned. They have a problem. The cleaning team has finally arrived in the boss's room, only to find that the Foxtrot Centipede is still alive. Junwoo is very concerned because without his skills, he has no chance of defeating the monster. Suddenly, it drops to the ground, it is actually dead. Junwoo surmises that it was undergoing rigor mortis. He is thinking about how the strategy and operation team is slacking off on their job. Hee-jong asks Junwoo if this is the first time he is seeing a boss monster. He whips out his knife and tells him to step back. Junwoo is stunned, he responds, "Excuse me?" Hee-jong tells him that he just froze there. He tells him to step back because he will take care of it. Junwoo is aggravated and wonders, is he shitting me right now, not to mention how Hee-jong said he was startled just moments ago. Junwoo says it is ridiculous and tells him to give him his knife and then snatches it out of his hand. They see Junwoo walking up to the Foxtrot Centipede, and they ask him what he thinks he is doing. Junwoo tells them that they said that they were going to dismantle it, and he tells them to watch and learn if they don't want to get hurt. He tells them that the knife only fits inside the 3rd, 6th, and 12th segments of the outer shell, and that it won't go in anywhere else, so they don't need to even bother trying. As Junwoo cuts into the centipede, he tells the team that the nerves appear to still be alive and that they should ignore the wiggling while they are taking the body apart. Guntae and the others are speechless as they watch Junwoo chop away. Junwoo asks them if they are just going to stand and watch. They come to their senses, and they join Junwoo. As the team works to dismantle the monster carcass, Junwoo is yelling at them non-stop. "You've got to shove it in first and push it up, you can't stab it aimlessly like that, don't touch the tail, many hunters have died from that poison." They begin to wonder what they have gotten themselves into. Junwoo remembers one other thing about the Foxtrot Centipede. He tells the others to make sure that they don't step on the blood. It isn't poisonous, but it is extremely sticky. Once you step on it, there is no way to get out of it. Sang-hyuk and Guntae have been observing Junwoo. They are a little weirded out by his behavior. Sang-hyuk asks Guntae if he showed Junwoo the control team's file, and if he did it to boost his confidence. Guntae says he didn't. Sang-hyuk doesn't believe him and tells him to be serious because there is no way a rookie cleaner could be this proficient and so knowledgeable. Guntae swears to him and says that the file did not contain any of the information that Junwoo shared with them. Sang-hyuk is shocked. then where could he have gotten the information? Junwoo continues to chop away as he focuses on the task at hand. Suddenly, the system notifies him that his OCD skill is being activated. Not too long after, the team finished dismantling the foxtrot centipede. The monster has been stripped down to the bones, and all the carcass has been packed in bags. Junwoo is feeling proud of his accomplishment. He smiles and suddenly freaks out. He wonders why he is feeling satisfied. Guntae is wowed and tells Junwoo that he is impressed, and he asks him if he is sure that this is his first time. Sang-hyuk tells Junwoo that he admits that he is not bad for a rookie. Soyeon questions Sang-hyuk's level of praise and says that Junwoo literally did all the work. Guntae says they've got a real promising cleaner here, and tells Sang-hyuk that he is going to need to step it up. Sang-hyuk shouts back and asks him to stop it with the jokes. Junwoo is looking at them and thinking that it really is not a big deal, it's just cleaning. Sang-hyuk looks at his watch and says that they need to get going because they only have 5 minutes left. Guntae says that is more than enough time and commends everyone for doing a good job. The cleaning team packs up, and they leave the boss's room. As they make their way towards the exit, Guntae tells Junwoo that everything worked out better than he expected, and it is all thanks to him. Junwoo suddenly stops walking. He looks down and sees that he has stepped on blood from the foxtrot centipede. He wonders if it leaked from one of the sacks someone is carrying. Sang-hyuk teases Junwoo because the one person who stepped in the blood was him. Soyeon is worried and tells the boss that Junwoo can't even budge. Junwoo sighs and tells them to stop making a fuss because he is fine. He tells them to give him some space. He is thinking about how this blood isn't just sticky, and about how he even had trouble getting it off himself when he was a hunter. He is thinking that with this skill, the blood will melt easily with extreme heat. He extends his hand and begins to activate his skill, Hellfire. And then, nothing happens. Everyone around him stands in silence, not knowing what they're watching. The system notifies Junwoo that the skill failed because it is currently locked. Junwoo says, "Oh. Right. Well, I'm fucked." The team begins to panic. Guntae asks Heejong if he had brought the ropes and tells him to hurry and tie Junwoo up, and for everyone else to grab onto the rope. Heejong ties the rope around Junwoo's waist, and they begin pulling. They try and keep pulling, but Junwoo is unable to budge. Guntae asks how much time they have left. They have 1 minute, no, 55 seconds remaining. On the count of 3, they pull again. Junwoo doesn't understand what is going on. Guntae tells Junwoo to hurry and take off his hazmat suit. Soyeon tells him to wait, that the gas levels are too high, and that it is too dangerous. Guntae cuts her off and asks if they would rather have all of them be trapped in here. Junwoo doesn't understand what he is talking about. He is the one who is stuck, so why are they willing to stay? A lizard's survival instinct is to cut off its tail. He is confused about why they are not giving up on him. He is the tail in this dire situation, which they are in. Guntae yells at Junwoo, he tells him to take off his hazmat suit, and he calls him a fool and says to listen to him. Junwoo is thinking that they are morons who are more foolish than lizards, and he begins to take off his suit. Guntae turns his attention to the others and tells them to all leave. Sang-hyuk questions him, he asks what his plan is. Guntae tells him that those who still have a chance, must live. Sang-hyuk tells him, absolutely not, he would rather stay behind. Guntae immediately shuts him down, and shouts for them to get out now, and he tells them that it is an order. Sang-hyuk remains silent, he realizes that the situation isn't up for debate, and that the least he can do is to obey his boss. As he turns around, he tells Guntae he has 10 seconds remaining. As Sang-hyuk, Heejong, and Soyeon leave, Guntae quickly runs to Junwoo and helps him get out of his uniform. Guntae begins to undress, he gives his own hazmat uniform to Junwoo. Junwoo puts it on, and they begin running. The rest of the team are outside the dungeon, and there are only a few seconds left. They watch the portal and wait anxiously, for what seems like an eternity, as Guntae and Junwoo race against the clock to reach the exit. It is just within reach. The portal begins to close, as San-hyuk, Hee-jong, and Soyeon watch helplessly. They rush towards the entrance. Guntae and Junwoo are on the ground, trying to catch their breath. They miraculously made it out in time, with less than a second to spare. They all gather around Guntae. They are overjoyed to see their boss. Junwoo is lying on the ground and is trying to cope with what he just went through. He is struck with the realization that he had almost died, and the fact that it was from cleaning up monster carcasses in an empty dungeon. Guntae asks Junwoo if he is alright. Junwoo replies to him, yes. Guntae tells him he is glad that the gas levels weren't as high as he had thought. He then apologizes to him for what happened at the first cleanup job today, and says that at least he can chalk it up to experience. Junwoo doesn't think his comment is funny. Chalk it up my ass. Or more rather, almost chalk it up. He suddenly becomes terrified when he realizes something that Guntae mentioned. He asks him about what he means by the first cleanup job today. Guntae tells him that they are just getting started. Junwoo asks, and how many more are there? With a big grin, Guntae stretches out his hand and shows him 5 fingers. Junwoo is completely flabbergasted. Junwoo just died a little on the inside. The Korean Association of Supernatural Ability Management has 96 strategy and operation teams stationed across the country. There are 8 teams just in Seoul alone. Including freelance hunters who are not affiliated with the association, there are about 11,300 hunters registered in the country. As for the dungeon cleaning team, there are 5 cleaning teams with a total of 25 cleaners, and they service the entire country. Each team cleans an average of 3.3 dungeons a day. On bad days, a team can be assigned to clean as many as 5 dungeons. Junwoo's soul has left his body, because today just happened to be one of those days. Guntae proposes to the team that they have a round of drinks to finish off the day. The employees ask him if he is not trying to buy the drinks again tonight. Guntae tells them that is what team leaders are for. They tell him he has been spending too much money on them. They should split the bill tonight. Their boss tells them that he can handle it and asks them to let him buy a round tonight. Guntae asks Junwoo if he is going to join them, and he tells him that he deserves a drink and that he can make the call for tonight's menu. The others are eager to leave, and they tell Junwoo to hurry on up. Junwoo tells them that he is not going. Their jaws drop in disappointment. Junwoo thinks there is no need for him to get all chummy with these guys, and then he realizes that having drinks with them is one thing, and that free food is another. He speaks up and says that he will take some steak, but he doesn't finish. Guntae didn't catch what Junwoo was trying to tell him. He tells him not to worry, and that he's not one to pressure people to drink. Junwoo tells Guntae that he meant to say is, but he becomes too shy to finish. He says never mind and tells them that he is heading out. Guntae tells Junwoo that he did good work today. As they begin to leave, Soyeon tells him, see you tomorrow, and Sang-hyuk tells him to have a good night. Junwoo is feeling a sense of camaraderie from his teammates. He is not really sure what to think. Junwoo is back at his apartment. He is laying on his bed, trying to figure out who killed him in his past life. He no longer suspects Guntae. He believes Guntae is too soft and that he isn't the type to hold a grudge and hire an assassin. He wonders, if it isn't Guntae, then who it could possibly be. There are only a few other people who might have resented him. He begins to think of the possible suspects. There is Gwon Mo-young, a newbie on his team that he regularly bullied. It could be Eugene Min, his ex, or maybe Dong Hee-won from the control team, who he roughed up. Junwoo curses when he realizes that the list just goes on. He grunts, thinking that there is no point. Whoever killed him in his previous life is probably someone he doesn't even know in this current timeline. He is thinking that, if he wants to take his revenge properly, he needs to deactivate the goddamn karma skill and return to his original life. However, in order to do that, he needs to become the Secretary General of the International Superpower Association. If only he had his skills, he could be a hunter in no time. Or, he could even join the control team. And then, Junu suddenly realizes something. He calls out the system to open his status window, and sees something that he didn't think to check that morning. There are requirements for unlocking his hunter skills. He laughs, thinking that the joke is on them. There is no need for him to resort to being a cleaner. And then, he begins reading the requirements. Average salary of dungeon cleaners must exceed $45,931. Job competition ratio of dungeon cleaners must exceed 30-1, the cleaning team. He shouts in anger, "You've got to be kidding me." Every single condition has something to do with the cleaning team. He crushes a plastic bottle and begins throwing things across the room, while mocking karma. He asks, "You want me to become a fully committed cleaner, don't you?" Junu cools off and tells himself to take it easy. He is looking at the mess he made, and suddenly, his OCD skill becomes activated. Junu soon finds himself cleaning his entire apartment while complaining along the way. "Why is the room so messy? Did I not get any cleaning done in my previous life? Yuck, how long has this been rotting here? God damn it, give me a break, for God's sake." Sometime later, Junu is notified that the requirement to unlock his skill has been met. The requirement was to show up at work. Hyper Boost has been unlocked.